Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. There was a tuna sandwich in the trash can. That's it. That's how it started. A full one, still wrapped, untouched. The kind Lana always asked me to make with too much mayo and no pickles. I make it every Friday before I leave for my weekend fishing trips. Every time she says she eats it while I'm gone. Every time I come home to an empty foil and a kiss that tastes like guilt and Diet Coke. But this time the sandwich was in the trash under a receipt from a seafood restaurant, time-stamped exactly 40 minutes after I'd left the driveway. It sounds ridiculous, right? Getting suspicious over a sandwich. But if you'd been in my shoes, worn-out sneakers, standing in a quiet kitchen where your wife's lies echo louder than her voice, you'd understand. That sandwich was the first honest thing I'd seen in weeks. Lana had stopped asking me anything lately. She barely looked up when I walked in. Our conversations were reduced to calendar updates and utility bills. We hadn't been intimate in months, unless you count her saying, every time I touched her arm, "No, he doesn't suspect a thing." Then came the fishing comment. "If you go fishing with friends, forget about me." She said it so nonchalantly, flipping through her phone like she was browsing socks and not detonating our marriage. I laughed at first, but she didn't. She didn't even look up, just kept scrolling. That was her bluff, her little power move. I should have argued. Instead, I shrugged and said, "Sounds like a great deal." That was the moment I stopped being her husband and became her roommate with fishing gear. I left that night, drove upstate with Percy and Dean. They cracked jokes. I pretended to laugh, but my mind was already home. In that trash can, in that sandwich. By the second day, I couldn't take it. I faked a headache and stayed behind while they went out on the boat. I sat by the fire pit and opened our home security app. She never knew I had access. I'd installed it back when we thought the neighbor's dog was stealing packages. The camera by the front porch showed nothing. The one by the driveway, a different story. Friday night, 9:17 p.m., a man pulled up in a black Nissan, tall hoodie, walked straight to the door. No hesitation. She opened it like she was expecting pizza. They hugged. Then she stepped out, locked the door behind her and got into his car. That same car returned 3 hours later. She stumbled out, heels in her hand, hair messy, laughing. He didn't kiss her goodbye, but he didn't have to. I saw the way she looked at him. I watched it 3 times. Then I downloaded it. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there holding my phone with the wind rustling through the pine trees like it was whispering, "Told you so." That night I packed my bag and told the guys I was heading home early. They didn't ask why. Maybe they saw it on my face, or maybe, just maybe, they'd known something I hadn't. I was only back home for 20 minutes when I found it, tucked between a pair of sunglasses and a crumpled tissue in the center console of Lana's car. A printed restaurant receipt from a place we'd never been together. I know this because I handle our finances down to the penny. And Lana never dined somewhere without texting me a photo of the food for her social media. The receipt said 2 entrees, 1 bottle of wine, and a dessert with a name I couldn't pronounce. Time-stamped 8:13 p.m. Friday. I was already at the cabin then, holding a beer and pretending to laugh with Percy while feeling like something was rotting inside me. Lana had told me she'd be working late that night. Deadline for the Peterson account, she'd mumbled while brushing her teeth. That account's been closed since May. I didn't say anything when I found the receipt, didn't confront her. I just slipped it into my wallet, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the chair across from me like it had answers. That chair had once been mine. Now it belonged to someone else, probably the same man who ordered the lobster ravioli and paid in cash. That night we ate in silence. She served me leftovers, kissed my cheek, and went upstairs to rest. I followed 20 minutes later and watched the bathroom light glow under the door while she whispered to someone on speaker. I caught one sentence before the water turned on. "No, he doesn't suspect a thing." That night I didn't sleep. I just laid there blinking at the ceiling, counting every crack in the plaster like they were lies. I kept hearing her voice. "He doesn't suspect a thing." The next morning she was suddenly sweet. Made me coffee, stood in the doorway of the garage and said, "Are you going fishing again next weekend?" "Fishing?" She said it like it was some kind of joke, like I was a dog chasing sticks while she had steak with someone else. I said no. Told her I wanted to spend time with her. She hesitated. It was subtle, a pause, half a blink too long, but I caught it. Of course, she said, smiling, but I knew I just messed up her next date. That's when I made a decision. I didn't want to confront her. I wanted proof. Real, undeniable, spine-snapping proof. So I did something I swore I'd never do. I borrowed my neighbor's dash cam. He uses it to catch raccoons in his trash. I asked to test it for my next fishing trip. He didn't ask questions. That night, while Lana was in the shower, I set it up in her car, low, hidden, angled at the passenger seat. She'd never notice. She never even carried groceries anymore. 3 days passed. She didn't drive the car once. Then came Thursday. She kissed me goodbye in the morning. Left in a rush, said she was grabbing lunch with her friend Willa. But Willa was in Arizona. She just posted a photo of a cactus on her story. I didn't say a word. I just waited. That evening, I took the dash cam, uploaded the footage to my laptop, and scrubbed through hours of nothing until 12:36 p.m. She got into the car, and she wasn't alone. He was young, maybe late 20s, shaggy hair, leather bracelet, the type of guy who calls his mom bruh. She laughed at something he said. Then she touched his hand. Then they kissed. Right there in the driver's seat of my car, where we used to listen to road trip playlists and fight about directions, where I first told her I loved her. They drove off, the rest of the footage cut to black out of frame. I sat there for an hour, the laptop glowing in front of me, watching that kiss on loop like some sick movie I never asked to star in. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't bluffing when she said, "Forget about me if you go fishing." She wasn't warning me. She was begging me to go. There's something cruel about how organized betrayal can be. I used to think cheating was messy. Suspicious texts, forgotten lies, lipstick on collars. But Lana, she ran it like a schedule. Color-coded deception, perfectly folded excuses, and an alibi for every hour. I wasn't dealing with someone careless. I was dealing with someone committed. The footage from the dash cam didn't just hurt, it humiliated. That hand on his knee, that laugh that used to be mine, the casual way she glanced in the mirror as if daring the world to catch her. It gutted me, but I didn't confront her, couldn't. Not yet. I needed more. That weekend I told her I changed my mind, that Percy had convinced me to go fishing again. She blinked like she hadn't expected me to fold so easily. Then came the smile. It wasn't relief, it was opportunity. That smile told me everything. She was about to use this trip, not mourn it. So I made plans, real ones. I packed the car, confirmed the cabin, even posted a picture by the lake to keep it believable. But I didn't go fishing. I parked in a friend's garage 2 towns over and waited. By the second hour, my phone buzzed. Lana had texted, "Hope you're having a good time, Red Heart." I stared at that heart like it was a bullet. And then I opened the GPS tracker app I'd secretly installed under her dashboard the night before. Dot on the map, Midtown. Not unusual, but then it moved, stopped, moved again. It eventually settled on a high-rise apartment complex near the edge of downtown. Same place the receipt was from. Coincidence? I didn't think so. I grabbed my hoodie and took a rideshare across town, heart pounding the whole way. It was pouring rain by the time I reached the building, my fingers shaking as I pulled out the second hidden phone I'd planted under her seat, set to automatically record audio when the car started. I hadn't told anyone about that part. I didn't want backup. I wanted truth. I ducked into the lobby just as the elevator dinged. A man stepped out. Same guy from the dash cam, hoodie again, confident, casual, completely unaware his life was unraveling because I noticed a sandwich in a trash can. I let him pass. Then I waited 10 minutes before heading up to the 11th floor. I didn't knock. I didn't ring. I just stood there. I could hear music inside, something jazzy, soft, intimate. Then laughter. Her laughter, that sharp inhale between giggles I knew by heart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to kick the door down and drag the truth into the light. But instead, I hit record on my phone and slipped a small envelope under the door. Inside was the receipt, a still photo from the dash cam and one line written in pen. "You said I should forget you. Done." Then I walked away. Halfway down the stairwell, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail from our home number. I paused, played it, and there she was, crying. Not the kind of crying that came from guilt. It was the kind that came from fear. "Please come home," she whispered. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stopped on the landing, rain dripping from my sleeves, breath caught somewhere between rage and heartbreak. She didn't expect me to leave, but she sure as hell wasn't ready for me to watch. By the time I got back to the house, my phone had 6 missed calls. 2 were from Lana. The rest were from unknown numbers, probably friends she roped in for damage control. I ignored them all. I needed to walk into that house like a man who knew everything, not someone still trying to solve a puzzle. I stepped inside without slamming the door, no theatrics, just the quiet creak of shoes on tile and the hum of a woman scrambling upstairs when she heard it. She was waiting at the top of the staircase, wearing my college hoodie like it meant something. Her mascara was smudged. Her voice cracked when she said my name. I didn't respond. I just walked past her and into the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water and took a long drink. I wanted her to feel every second of that silence, wanted her to sweat in it. She followed me in, rambling. "Look, I know what you saw. I know how it looks, but it's not what you think. He's just a friend. He was helping me with a surprise for you." I turned slowly, tilted my head like I was confused. "A surprise?" "Yes," she said, latching on to the word like it could save her. "A vacation for us. I know we've been off, and I thought maybe." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a flash drive, placed it gently on the counter. "That's not what friends do, Lana," I said calmly. "Unless kissing and grabbing thighs in my car is part of the new surprise package." Her mouth opened, then closed. Nothing came out, just a shallow breath. "Do you want to hear the audio?" I asked, tapping the flash drive. "I have a clear recording of your little road trip conversations. You didn't even wait until you were out of the neighborhood." Now she was crying, full-blown sobs, the kind that used to make me cave during arguments. But this time I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just this cold, still emptiness. Like I was watching a stranger collapse in front of me. "You don't understand," she said. "You've been distant. You spend more time with a fishing rod than with me." That was her defense, fishing, as if 3 weekends a year justified months of deception. I sat down at the table, let her stand across from me with trembling hands and the look of someone who finally realized the hole they dug had no bottom. "You could have told me you were unhappy," I said. "You could have screamed, cried, broken plates. I'd rather be hurt by honesty than gutted by manipulation." She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "One mistake. That's the thing about cheaters. They never count the moments, only the outcomes." She didn't think I knew about the second guy or the burner phone or the apartment she visited twice in July while I was out of town helping my sick brother. But I knew. I knew everything. I stood up, walked past her again, and grabbed the envelope I'd left on the hallway table earlier. It was thick, heavy with copies of messages, videos, receipts, all dated, time-stamped, undeniable. I dropped it onto the couch. "You're going to need this," I said. "For the lawyer," she gasped. "You're divorcing me." I turned, finally letting some of the fire out. "No, Lana, I divorced you the day you turned love into a transaction and expected me not to notice." And then I left. Not dramatically, not slamming anything, just walked out the door of the house I paid for, the life I built, and the woman who thought I'd never stop being soft. But I wasn't soft anymore. I was done. By Monday morning, the house looked like a crime scene disguised as a romantic comedy. Candles I hadn't seen since our honeymoon magically reappeared on the counter. A bottle of red wine sat unopened by the sink. The couch cushions were rearranged. The framed photo of us at Niagara Falls had migrated from the closet to the living room shelf. Lana was performing, and I was the audience she never expected to walk out during the opening act. I didn't say anything when I walked in. I just placed my bag down, calmly took off my shoes, and sat across from her at the kitchen table. She was already seated, as if she'd been rehearsing this moment for hours. And maybe she had. Her eyes were puffy, hair tied up like she wanted to look disheveled, but not too disheveled. Scripted vulnerability. She started with small talk. "I washed your jacket. It smelled like smoke from the fire pit. I gave a slight nod, then silence. "Can we talk?" she asked after a long pause, wringing her hands like it was a courtroom instead of a kitchen. "Just talk." I leaned forward and met her eyes. "No more lies." She nodded quickly. "No more lies." "Then tell me who he is." "All of them. Names, dates, places. Start from the beginning." That's when the performance cracked. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted to the floor. She knew I wasn't playing the forgive and forget role she'd written for me. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen," she said quietly. "It started during the pandemic. You were so distant, and Trevor, he was just around. He listened." I stayed quiet, letting her fill the silence with guilt. "There were a couple of others," she finally admitted, barely above a whisper. "But it was never serious. You were always the one I came back to." "You mean the one who paid the mortgage?" I asked. She winced. The rest came out in fragments. Trevor was the first, then Marcus, a few nights with a guy named Caleb who she met at some company event while I was visiting my parents. Apparently she was lonely and lost herself. That's what she kept saying. But I hadn't left her alone. I was just invisible, forgotten, useful only when bills were due or errands piled up. I should have yelled, should have slammed something. But I just sat there nodding slowly like a doctor, listening to a diagnosis he already knew was terminal. "I want to work through this," she said after unloading everything. "I'm willing to do anything. Counseling, therapy, a fresh start. I've changed." "No, Lana," I said softly. "You didn't change. You got caught and now you're scared." She started crying again. This time it was different, less rehearsed. Maybe because she realized the curtain had actually dropped and there wouldn't be an encore. I stood up and pulled a document from my bag. Not divorce papers yet, but something worse, at least for her. A full itemized report of our financial history. I'd spent the past week gathering it, every bank login, every transfer, every joint asset. I laid it on the table and pointed to a highlighted section. "This is how much I've moved into my personal account. Legally, quietly. Yours is empty now, by the way. You won't find a cent." She gasped like I'd slapped her. "I didn't steal it," I said calmly. "I just protected what was mine before you tried to burn it all down." "But how could you?" she whispered. "Because while you were out playing pretend with men who listened, I was listening to the silence, to the changes, to all the things you thought I was too stupid to notice." She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in a long time, I think she saw me. Not the man she could mold or guilt trip, but the man who'd finally reached the edge of the cliff and decided to jump instead of keep backing up. "I'll give you the house," I said. "I'm not staying. I'll be gone in 2 weeks, but don't mistake that for kindness. It's a mercy you didn't earn." I left her sitting there, shaking, trying to figure out how the man who once begged her to love him had somehow grown teeth. The strangest part of betrayal isn't the lies or the infidelity. It's watching the person who broke everything look at you like you're the villain for walking away from the wreckage they caused. That's exactly what happened after I told Lana I was leaving and gave her 2 weeks to figure out how to live with what she'd done. You'd think the tears, the apologies, the sudden acts of kindness would have ended once she realized I wasn't bluffing. But no, she shifted gears from regret to revenge, from weeping widow to wronged wife, and I should have seen it coming. She started with our friends, or more accurately, my friends. People we used to go on couple trips with who drifted into her circle. Once I became the silent husband everyone pitied. Suddenly, I was getting cold shoulders, awkward pauses on calls. One of them, Russ, even texted me late at night and said, "Hey man, I heard things are rough, but Lana's really hurting too. Maybe you're being a bit harsh." Harsh, right? She didn't tell them about the cheating, of course. She told them I'd emotionally abandoned her, that I was obsessed with fishing and checked out of the marriage. She painted herself as the loyal wife who waited years for her husband to return emotionally. And when I didn't, she made a mistake in a moment of weakness. I wish I could say I didn't care what people thought, but it stung. I wanted to scream the truth from the rooftops. Instead, I sent Russ one message. A 5-second clip of her kissing Trevor in the car. Time-stamped, silent. He never replied. Next came the financial guilt tripping. She found out the joint account was drained legally, cleanly, no fraud, and she panicked. I'd left her enough to cover 2 months of bills, but she called it cruel. Said I'd blindsided her and sabotaged her independence. This from the same woman who spent nearly $1,000 on a spa retreat while I was at my brother's funeral last spring. Her emails turned cold, then hostile. She copied her cousin, who's a paralegal, into one of them, probably hoping to scare me. She demanded I compensate her for the emotional distress caused by my sudden and aggressive financial move. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded her the PDF showing all her Venmo transfers to Marcus and Caleb, labeled with cutesy emojis and dinner receipts to shut that down fast. But the most unexpected hit came from inside the house. Her mother, Clara, never liked me much, thought I was too quiet, too soft. But 3 days after the financial fallout, she showed up at my office. No call, no warning. Just appeared in the doorway with her grey curls pulled back and a look that could strip paint. "I need 10 minutes," she said. We sat in the break room like co-workers. She placed her bag down, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I always knew something was off, but I didn't know this." She'd seen the footage. Lana tried to spin it, but Clara had lived enough life to spot a liar wearing a wedding ring. And in her own quiet way, she told me something I hadn't expected. "You deserved better. You still do." I nearly lost it right there, but I didn't. I nodded, thanked her, and walked back to my desk, like my spine hadn't just realigned from the 1 ounce of support I didn't know I needed. That night, I returned home and found Lana had packed half the closet, not in boxes, but in trash bags. A dramatic touch. She left one of my jackets on the bed with a note pinned to it. "I hope this keeps you warm when no one else will." I laughed for the first time in weeks. I actually laughed because the truth is, I've never felt warmer. I thought the hard part was over after I walked out. I thought once you set the truth on fire and walk away, you're finally free. But the truth has a habit of circling back. It doesn't just burn bridges, it lights up every shadow you forgot to check. And in Lana's case, those shadows were deeper than I ever expected. A week after I moved into a short-term rental, she started texting again. Not begging this time, but shifting tone completely. Passive-aggressive nonsense. "Hope you're happy," one message read. "You've made your point," another said. "Don't forget, I sacrificed a lot for you." That word stuck in my head like a splinter. Sacrificed. She made it sound like she gave up a kingdom to tolerate me. Meanwhile, she'd been carrying on a side romance portfolio like it was a hobby. But the real punch came 2 nights later when I got a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was another one of her little stabs until I saw the attachment. A screenshot. Lana had started a private group chat with 3 of her friends. The title of the group, "Free at Last." In it, she called me emotionally abusive, said I manipulated her with money, and that I was spying on her like a lunatic. One of her friends, Sharon, who once borrowed money from me to fix her car, replied, "Men like that always pretend to be victims. Good for you, babe. You deserve fun." I read that sentence 5 times. You deserve fun. Suddenly, everything was clear. Lana wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to erase me, rewrite the story, make herself the wounded heroine, and me the controlling husband who finally let her breathe. I could have just ignored it. But I didn't. Instead, I did something that shook her foundation more than any argument could have. I replied in that group chat. She hadn't noticed that her iPad was still synced to the Apple ID I created when we got married. Rookie mistake. I typed one message. "Hi Sharon, hi Rachel, hi everyone, just wanted to say thanks for the support. By the way, I have the receipts, the footage, and the full call logs. If I'm emotionally abusive, then I'm the quietest one in history. You all really think cheating multiple times is fun. Keep that energy for the courtroom." Within 30 seconds, I was removed from the chat. 10 minutes later, Lana called. I didn't pick up. The next morning, my lawyer called me. Apparently, she'd beaten me to the filing, only she didn't file for a standard divorce. She filed with accusations, said she felt unsafe, claimed I was mentally unstable, and had been monitoring her electronically in violation of her privacy. She really thought she had me cornered. But here's the thing, I'd done everything clean legally. No spyware, no hacking, just shared storage and sync devices. Hers, not mine. And when my lawyer laid it all out in front of the judge, Lana's face reportedly turned so pale it looked like she saw a ghost. Because the evidence wasn't just strong, it was airtight. Texts, videos, bank transfers, all of it documented and filed neatly with timelines and context. The judge didn't even let her finish her prepared statement. He asked one question. Did you ever ask your husband to disconnect the shared accounts? Her answer, well, no. That was it. She lost the case right there, not just legally but publicly. Later that day, I got an email. No greeting, no signature, just 2 words. You win. But here's the truth. I didn't win. There's no victory in watching the person you once loved become a stranger with a vendetta. There's no joy in proving betrayal when all you ever wanted was loyalty. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace, and I was finally getting close. I didn't expect peace to feel so quiet, not the silence of tension, but the silence of clarity. The kind where nothing's buzzing in your head and you can finally hear your own thoughts without them ricocheting off someone else's lies. That's where I ended up after the final hearing. Lana didn't show up. Her lawyer handled the whole thing. And just like that, the marriage that had been dying in slow motion for years finally flatlined with a stamp and a sigh. I drove home that day, not to the old house, not to the rental, but to a small cabin I'd been eyeing near Twin Hollow Lake. It wasn't fancy, smelled a bit like cedar and old firewood, but it was mine. Every plank, every window, every key on the ring, no one else's name on the deed. No shared passwords, no fake smiles at breakfast, no wondering why your wife smells like cologne that isn't yours. Just me and the water. The first thing I did was unpack my tackle box. I hadn't fished since this all started, and for a moment I almost laughed at how full circle it was. A fishing trip started this whole mess. Lana's infamous line, "If you go fishing with your friends, forget about me." And I did. But I remembered myself. I stood on the dock that evening, cast my line, and watched the sun melt behind the trees. It wasn't about fish. It was about finally feeling still in a world that had spun too fast, too loud, and too cruel for far too long. A notification buzzed on my phone. It was a photo from Percy. He and Dean holding up 2 monster bass, grinning like kids. "Next trip you're coming," he wrote. "No excuses, no ex-wives." I smiled, not bitterly, genuinely, because despite everything, I had people who never left, people who didn't need excuses or lies to show up. Later that night, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Closure. It had everything, evidence, documents, messages. I hit delete, not because I forgave her, not because I wanted to forget, but because dragging it around wouldn't change the ending. And I was finally ready to write something new. I poured a drink, sat on the porch, and realized that I didn't lose a wife. I lost someone who was never really mine to begin with, and in return, I gained something worth far more. Myself. Now it's your turn. What moment from this story hit you the hardest? Was it the sandwich, the dash cam, the courtroom twist? Drop a comment and let us know what you would have done. And if you've ever had a moment where walking away was the strongest thing you did, share it with us. You're watching Reddit Confessions, where stories hurt, heal, and hit hard. Thanks for staying with me through all 8 parts. See you in the next.